Hey, I'm Allie, and I am here with my friend Latasha. And the two of us, we co-host a podcast that you may or may not have heard of. It's called IKR, which means...
I know, right?
And it's a Crossroads podcast for women. And we're here with our friend Betty, who was actually our episode 1 guest. And the way that her story unfolded in her life is just a true testimony to someone who's really found out what grace is and what it means to escape your past and to move into a new future.
I'm excited to introduce you to all of Crossroads because you are not only a business owner, you're an entrepreneur, you're married to a guy who is part of the spiritual board around here. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
My upbringing was kind of typical. I had this real insecure void in my life and felt like I wasn't popular or nobody loved me. And that was kind of the reality that I had, or I thought was reality. When I was 19, I ended up getting pregnant. Had an abortion with twins, and it was terrible. Everything about it was terrible. And from that point, I just tried to just drown and space out those feelings. I started getting into drugs and anything that would just get me away from my life, really. And then I went into banking, did really, really well in that career. And eventually, a friend that had been a customer as well said, if you give me $100,000, I'll pay it back and give you 50 of it, and you can get out of banking, and that's what's going to make you happy. Yeah, by that time, I had become a vice president and could make a loan like that without other people approving of it. I knew that he was smuggling pot from Colombia, but he didn't pay it back right away. I ended up getting fired from the bank because of my behavior. I was just freaking out that this money was gone. I ended up as a fugitive from the FBI because they caught the loan.
At 30 years old.
At 30.
And so take us to the point where you get caught.
I'm in a restaurant in Key West, Florida, and all of a sudden 3 FBI agents come to the table and handcuff me and put me in their vehicle. I had a 4-hour drive back to the Miami jail where they were taking me, and it was just terrifying. I always was so afraid and paranoid that that's where I would end up, and sure enough, I did. And then I had a $100,000 bond that I needed to come up with to get out, and I didn't have it. I was charged with 13 felony counts, which I was totally guilty, and they had 10 years imprisonment each. So it was 130 years I was looking at.
So you're awaiting trial. What's going through your head during this period of time? Are you relieved that you've been caught? Are you still terrified?
I don't think I was relieved at that point because it was just so scary. I mean, there were fights and threats, and anytime they'd let me out of the cell, I'd go because it was so scary. And one time somebody gave me just a little tract, a little fold, a little pamphlet that explained the message of salvation. And I had never been interested in that, but I read it and realized, okay, I get a do-over. And I fill in the void that had nothing else had filled.
And so you gave your life to Jesus in a jail cell.
Yes.
At 30-something.
30.
Looking at 130 years.
Yes.
Of imprisonment.
Right.
Talk about what the judge, how he sentenced you when you came back.
I ended up doing a plea bargain.
Okay.
So, but I was definitely convicted of 1 felony count and 5 years in prison. And the judge just said something came over him that day, and he just thought, no, I'm going to put her on strict probation instead. So, and it was a real miracle because I deserved to go.
You ended up getting a presidential pardon.
Yes.
From President Bill Clinton.
Right.
How in the world did that happen?
It started in '88, and it didn't happen until '94. And my mother's Bible study started it. I didn't feel like I deserved a pardon because I was guilty. So, but they started the process, and I obviously had to get involved.
it says that a pardon is a sign of forgiveness.
Yes.
Wow.
I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
To be a sign of forgiveness from my government.
Yes, your government forgives you.
The consequence is I'm still a convicted felon.
That's right.
And I always will be. It does not expunge the record, but they have forgiven me.
So I wanted you to talk a little bit more about you are a convicted felon and you have other things in your past that maybe you're living with today. Just talk a little bit about, what about the externals, just the reality of trying to live in that?
Well, after Jerry and I got married, we wanted children, and we tried very, very hard and went to many specialists and did lots of things, and were never able to get pregnant. And that was heartbreaking because, I could have had twins. They would have been 50 this month. So the fact that I was never able to get pregnant again was really heartache. And then we wanted to adopt, but at that point, because I was a convicted felon, we couldn't adopt. So it was really hard.
That's rough.
Now, we act like grandparents and spoil kids and send them home, and we have a good life. And God's redeemed that as well. But it was really hard.
That's a hard one.
Something that I had to work very hard to stop blaming myself, beating myself over the head. It's choice. It's not easy, but it is simply a choice what you think about. You can stop thinking about those negative things.
So how do you do that? How do you just give us a practical example of what you do, especially for those of us who are constantly thinking the negative things?
Well, I think the first thing is to be aware of it. You become aware, and then you make a decision, and then you work at it. And it's baby steps.
I also like inviting other people into it. So giving people permission. Hey, Allie, if you hear me saying that thing that I'm trying to not say, I give you permission. Really, I give you permission to check me on it. I give you permission lovingly.
It's certainly amazing. I know that no one who sees you today would ever imagine that this is your story and your past. But to me, that's the best part.
Yes.
Because even how you look today and who you are today, everything about you speaks of, a beautiful redo. So
sweet.
Thank you. That's sweet.
Love to hear it.